Mieko is with TravisMathew, and she's got a really cool story on how TravisMathew has really transitioned from being a self-service Pixelz provider all the way into a really good power user over the last about year and a half or so. Mieko?
Hello. All right, so for us, with TravisMathew in particular, the story so much isn't about tools and a vendor as much as it is about what happens when our ambition was kind of outgrowing our human capacity, and that's where we really partnered with Pixelz. And it was kind of focusing on how we had to scale without having human burnout. So we needed to find a way to utilize Pixelz to meet the scalability of our company. So when we first started with Pixelz, we started with it as being more of an out-of-the-box solution. We were capturing ghost mannequins in the studio, and then there was a strategy change within the company where we wanted to capture more of pinups or flat lays, and so we were using Pixelz to then just remove the pins for us, and then downloading those images back, having the more granular edits happen in-house with our retouchers. But that meant that we had no account partner. We were creating our own specifications within the platform. We were only focusing on these particular type of dimensions. And so we started to think about what else can Pixelz do and how else can it help us while we try to scale our workflow. We were scaling a lot. The company was growing a lot, and we needed to keep up. So the analogy of it being no longer a speedboat, and it was kind of a cruise ship now, where we were a large organization and things that were working when we were smaller were no longer working when we grew. When you're a speedboat and you're a smaller company and you're moving quickly, it's easier to kind of hide those inefficiencies because you're moving so quickly. But once you're growing and you're larger, those start to show a lot. And when you're a larger company, you can't rely as much on intuition. You have to develop those systems that are going to support you.
And so pivot quicker, and you can adjust in the course
exactly.
And,
we had to find a right course and adjust to the size of the company and the content flow that was coming in. And so when the teams are small, the speed hides the inefficiencies, but as you grow, every decision compounds, and that includes costs, people, timelines, the quality. So we really had to focus on what our systems mean and how much they matter now. And so this is when it took time for us to kind of maneuver and change our way of working within the company. So in order to change our way of working, that meant that we had to kind of change and learn what our understanding of capacity meant. And so first we needed to understand that within our team, what is capacity and how is it limiting our abilities within our team and within our company? So we needed to understand that capacity wasn't so much about how hard our team was working, but it was more so about what the constraints were that were placed on our team. So the constraints were budget, human capital, how many hours were in the day, the mental health and focus of our team members that were working on these pieces, the timeline conflicts, the rework and redundancy that had to keep happening over and over again. And so when these constraints aren't designed for scale, that's when we realize that the capacity doesn't simply disappear, it just overflows.
And I like this, it's not that just, I think when you're often looking at this from maybe a leadership perspective, as you say you have X number of people and you work X hours per day, so this is the capacity that we have, right? But it's not that simple.
Exactly.
Right? You've got, I love to see mental health and focus on here in the first place, but not everyone is 100% efficient 100% of the time.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, we had to take into account that even if we have people working on a full week, we have meetings, we have PTO, we have people that are out sick, there's other things that are contributing to that. So the math made the problem undeniable in our eyes. We didn't have a performance issue so much as we had a capacity ceiling that we were facing. So when the capacity is breaking, the people are the ones that are absorbing that problem. So these stats right here are basically based off of our one retoucher that we had in-house. So we assumed that he was working roughly 50 hours a week. He had about 90% productivity because he wasn't involved in too many meetings throughout the week. And on his average time working on an image of retouching was roughly 27 minutes. So every month he was able to work on about 400 images, But you could see that over the month, the total assets and the content that was coming in just kept on growing and growing. So no matter how much he was working, we were still experiencing spill no matter what.
And this growth came from you guys were expanding into the women's wear as well,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, we were expanding. We had more SKUs. We were just growing in a lot of different ways. So this is an example also of where we were. So our creative ambition was scaling faster than our systems that were supporting it. And so we had 43 editorial shoots per year. We were launching 75 campaigns. We had over 4,000 new SKUs in a year, and we had over 100,000 unique assets created and cataloged. So at this time, there was one project manager and there was one retoucher that was working on all of these things. So it's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So
hence the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and then as the company is growing, the initiatives are growing as well, and you want to be someone that can support that. You don't want to be a no person. So you want to find a way to now support that. And so we realized that we had to be honest about what our capacity really was and what we were capable of doing. And so that's when we realized that the conversation needed to shift, and it wasn't so much that the answer was hiring more people or moving faster, because again, we needed to have that balance still of working with human beings and understanding what each person's capacity was. But the issue itself was that we needed to redesign the system that we were working with. So we knew that effort wasn't ever the problem, it was more so that the capacity was. So we needed to remove our capacity ceiling, and we realized that some of the negative parts of how we were operating in the past was that we were experiencing financial loss, and that was from missing product launch dates or having vendor chargebacks. We were having relationships, the trust was damaged, and that was also with vendors with the chargebacks, or that was with our internal team members if we're not able to deliver the assets to them on time for us to meet deliverables. And then that comes with inefficiencies and costs and the time and the morale of the team itself.
Especially with one person.
Especially for one person.
One retoucher.
Yeah. There we go. And so this is our prior workflow, how it looked beforehand. Before, we believed that quality really depended on the heroics of the human touch, where we really thought that we needed a human involved at every single step. So it was something where we would have the shoot and we would have our raws come in, then we would have someone have to sort those images, name those images, upload those to Pixelz for that first round edit of removing those pins, download from Pixelz, have our in-house retoucher edit those, then send those out to our internal team members for reviews and approvals. And those go through various rounds. Then we would have to also share those with our e-com team to get those on the site. And then we would have to also upload them to Binder, which is our DAM.
Exhausting.
Lots of steps in that process. Yeah. And these were all very necessary steps, but it's just that they were not scalable. So we needed to find a solution because the system was working until it wasn't. Things were growing and we needed to keep up. And so with the evolution of our art direction team, the SKU growth, our content scale, and the budget pressure, everything was changing for us.
All at the same time.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
Everything all at once, everywhere, all that. So we needed to first do a lot of housekeeping internally, though. And we needed to prepare ourselves first internally in order to be able to properly leverage a platform like Pixelz. So we had to look at ourselves. We needed to change our way of working. And that meant that transitions aren't always smooth. So that means we needed to take the time. We had to standardize our naming conventions. We needed to build more comprehensive editing specs so that we could really give Pixelz the power to really help us in the way that we needed. And then this really empowered Pixelz to become successful partners with us. And so our method with Pixelz, once we implemented these changes, was we would test something, we would fix whatever was wrong, we would test it again, and then when it was successful, we would deploy that.
It's also a really good exercise, too, when you're in this evolution of growing as a brand, to be able to look at your processes and your systems, because if you're kind of staying steady, you just let things kind of run the way that they're running. But this has been probably a really cool exercise as well, to really look at your whole system and actually see how you can consolidate.
Yeah, the efficiencies that we could put into place. So throughout all of that process and working with Pixelz and streamlining our processes, we were able to take all of those other steps that we previously had and just have it now just these simple steps here. So we were able to have it quality built to scale instead of it having something that was powered by humans so much. So we were able to simplify our process a lot, and together with Pixelz, we were able to have this where it meant that we would now have faster cycle times, we could process more content, we were freeing up teams to now focus on higher value work, which means that, one of the retouchers that we had that was having to touch every single image and work on that, he's also a very talented studio photographer, so that freed him up to be able to shoot in studio more often. He could do creative grids, that could get us more content out as well. It also helped where we would work with our art directors more, where they would be able to give us specifications, and then they wouldn't have to rely so much on checking every single thing once they're putting in those editing notes, and we can submit that to Pixelz, and those are applied. So it was freeing people up to be able to focus on higher value things, and then it also helped us become a dependable partner again, where we were gaining that trust with vendors. Again, we were gaining that trust internally with our teams.
I think it's also really interesting to go, if you went back to the previous workflow slide and see how integrated you had, additional product teams, art director teams, and then basically taking, what you're saying is you took all of this and basically are shifting it earlier in the process.
Exactly.
Right, so that the art directors still have their opinion in it, but we're shifting that into pre-production, so everyone's aligned in pre-production.
Exactly.
And then you don't have to have all these different types of approval layers at the end of the process.
Exactly. Yeah, and then if they do need to go in to review something later on, it's a much lighter load. It's not so intricate because we're able to build that trust beforehand with the specs and the notes that we gave Pixelz.
And some of the stuff that we were working on a lot was, of course, just standardized file naming, but the purpose of standardized file naming was more to triage everything in the different workflows. Like I said, you have 150 different specifications with us, and to have an internal person, which you were doing before, an internal person who was sorting things to different folders and saying this needs this treatment, et cetera. Now we're able to kind of leverage some standardized processes to automate where things go instead of your team having to do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it freed up a lot of hands. So with all of that, Pixelz was able to become a partner that helped lift that capacity ceiling for us. And so here we are today with all the different ways that we use Pixelz. If you remember in the beginning, we were using them first just for our ghost mannequins and cropping those images. And then we transitioned to pinups where they would just remove the pins for us. Now we're using them across all of these different types of images. So we use them with our pinups, we use them with our product images, our lifestyle or editorial images. We also use them with our PDP videos, our creative grids, our product detail shots, and then we're also dipping our toes into the AI features with the models for our catalogs. So we've grown a lot with them over the time that we've been working with them and just exploring what all the capabilities are with them to see how we can continue to grow.
I think the AI one was an interesting case too. It was wholesale, right?
Yeah.
Where you weren't able to have the samples in time? Or,
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it's a really good use case, right? When you get samples with a very short deadline and that needs to go out to wholesales and buyers really quick.
Yeah.
It was a fun little campaign to do for you guys as well. Good?
Yes. And so with this, we've realized that Pixelz has just consistently been able to show up for us as a partner, and they've been willing to help us as we are trying to solve all of these complex problems as they arise. And our team is consistently impressed with the work that we're doing with Pixelz, and it's even just the most human aspects of it where we work very closely with Leanne. We hop on meetings. She's always available to work with us. She's down to explore new things, create new specs. If there's anything that we're willing to try out, she's game to try it out with us. And so it's something that we're really excited to continue growing with them in the future.
I think it's so like that's the key to it is really treating it like a partnership. And I don't want to necessarily cross the line into consultancy, but I know that you lean on Leanne a lot for advice on how we're solving things for other people. And we, of course, lean on you to get the right information at the right time to be able to give you guys the right outputs that you're looking for. And I think that's super powerful. But if we have a little bit of time, and we do, we can actually show a couple before we get to Jason here. Maybe a couple images from one of the recent campaigns that you guys have done, because I think it's really fun. You already swapped me. Good man. Yeah, this is one of the fun golf campaigns that we recently did for you, and this is on the lifestyle editorial side of things, and we can see some of the, and you guys use the platform to manage the entire workflow. You're doing your QC within here and giving feedback and amends throughout that process in here as well. But yeah, you can see. This was a short timeline campaign as well, right?
Yes, this is a very quick turnaround. We needed it in like a couple days.
Yeah.
So.
Good. This is fun. Great. But then with that, let's hear. Maybe we can give a little round of applause for Mieko.
Thank you.